Today, we look at two related issues that really hurt the Islanders last season and in the playoffs. Number one, can the power play be fixed? And number two, can Noah Dobson get his confidence back and have a bounce back year next year? All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get the latest episodes as soon as they drop. And we are now available on the Sirius XM app, SXM. Just do a search for Locked On Islanders. Lots to discuss in this episode. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe something you'd like us to discuss on a future episode of the show, feel free to email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings from hirings, firings, trade rumors, free agency, and the draft in what should be a very critical offseason for this New York Islanders team. So today we're going to discuss two major issues that I think are interrelated. And we're going to start with the power play because it has been a problem for, well, far too long. And everydayers, you will know how many times over the course of this season and over the course of even recent seasons that I have called out the Islanders' power play. How bad was it? Well, okay. There are 32 teams in the National Hockey League, and the New York Islanders ranked 30th out of those 32 teams with a 15.8% success rate when they had the extra attacker. Now, you add into that the fact that the Islanders scored only one power play goal in their 6-game playoff series against the Carolina Hurricanes, and also gave up a shorthanded goal in that series, and you realize 5-on-5 over the course of the playoff series against the Hurricanes, the Islanders were the better team overall. And yet they lost the series mostly because the special teams units, especially the Islanders power play versus the Canes power play, no comparison. You take away those power play goals or give the Islanders maybe two more power play goals over the course of 6 games, we're talking about a very different series. And I think it's critical to understand how important the power play is. You know, one thing that has been a little bit of a frustration for Islanders fans, and we're still waiting for some news or some word from Lou Lamoriello about whether or not we will officially have Lane Lambert and Lou Lamoriello back next year. That remains completely up in the air. We don't know. And then, obviously, if Lane Lambert is back, what happens to the assistant coaches? And one of them, John MacLean, who is supposed to run the power play, we still do not know whether or not he is going to be back this year. And, you know, based on the way the power play performed, both during the regular season and in the playoffs, I would have to question MacLean. And I'll take it a step further. Look, the Islanders' power play undoubtedly suffered even more down the stretch when Matthew Barzal was unavailable, out of the lineup, because so much of their power play revolves around Barzal gaining speed and skating the puck in and setting up the play. And without Barzal, they really didn't have an alternative to go to. But even before that injury, we have talked about the way the power play is set up and how disappointing it has been that it's set up the way it is. In order to be successful on the power play, you've got one skater who the other team cannot cover. Someone should always be open for a pass or a shot, uh, based on the fact that four guys cannot adequately cover five guys all the time. So the important factors are you need to space things out well, and you need to move without the puck and with the puck and move the puck in order to make the four penalty killers chase the puck, get out of position, and leave one or more players open. And the Islanders just do a dreadful job of that, both before the injury to Barzal and after it. They do not move the players themselves without the puck. Their biggest success, and it has been, as we know, sporadic at best, is when they do move the puck quickly, but more often than not, they do not pass the puck quickly from side to side, going cross ice or going to the point to the other side, back cross ice, behind the goal. The puck and the players, neither of them move enough to actually create open shots, to tire out the opposition, to make it more difficult for the penalty killers to keep pace. None of these things seem to happen on the Islanders' power play, and that's why it is very difficult to understand why we haven't had an announcement about John MacLean. And yeah, maybe MacLean, if he meets with Lane Lambert and with Lou Lamoriello, maybe you get to the conclusion that, okay, he's drawn up a different strategy and he's going to change up the way the power play is run. And yeah, I can, I guess that would be the only way that I think he could save his job, because again, you had all season to make adjustments, and yet those adjustments just weren't made consistently. And I don't understand why we haven't seen a replacement or at least a dismissal of MacLean, or at least some kind of an acknowledgement that the way this power play operated last year, it wasn't just a lack of talent, although a lack of talent was part of it, but it was also a bad strategy that either was so poorly, either the strategy was so poorly executed that it's unrecognizable, or more likely that the strategy itself just wasn't that good and didn't really work, and there were just not enough adjustments made over the course of an 82-game regular season and a 6-game postseason. So that's 88 games that counted where the power play was rendered effective. So the Islanders need to change their approach. Yeah, I want to see them add personnel. We've talked about the need for a puck-moving defenseman. We've talked about the need for a sniper. But I'll tell you this, a good strategy executed by average personnel is probably better over the course of the season than a bad strategy executed by better personnel. So you can get by without having Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on your power play, as long as you execute a good system and are coached well. The Islanders need to do that, regardless of whether they bring in the puck-moving defenseman, regardless of whether they add another sniper. And with the cap, we know how hard that will be. They need better strategy and better execution. And as of right now, with the silence going on around this team, I don't know necessarily that we're going to see it, but it's vital for the future of the team's success. When we come back, we'll talk about another facet that could help the power play and the team's transition game. Can Noah Dobson have a bounce back season next year? It's important for this team. We've got that and a lot more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you could be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know your part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. So let's talk Noah Dobson. All of us have recognized that Noah Dobson, especially in his own zone, regressed this past season. And while the numbers were still solid, he was fourth on the team with 49 points, 13 goals, 36 assists. He was even a plus in the plus minus department. If you watched Noah Dobson over the course of the season, you know that there were some added difficulties for him and based on the way he played. First of all, let's start with this. Noah Dobson was, for the majority of this season, the quarterback of the Islanders' power play. And that was indeed a problem. And we talked about the poor puck movement and poor puck management, needing more from Dobson in that respect. And even in the last game of the playoffs, back on April 28th against Carolina, they moved Sebastian Aho into the quarterback spot of the number one power play unit. And that just shows a lack of confidence in what Noah Dobson was doing, that this last desperate attempt to straighten out the power play involved benching or demoting Noah Dobson from that number one power play spot. So if I'm Lou Lamoriello and I'm Lane Lambert, and if John MacLean is back or whoever may take over as coaching the power play from MacLean, one thing I absolutely must do throughout the offseason and in training camp and the preseason, I'm working with Noah Dobson to try to get him to be more decisive and to coach him up on the power play and say, okay, you want to quarterback the power play. This is what we need you to do. And you got to start working on doing it and making it second nature, because what they've been doing up until this point really has not been working. And Dobson just isn't running the power play in an effective way. The other thing is getting the puck out of his own zone. Dobson in his own zone this year regressed badly, and needing him to be more decisive with the puck, to either skate the puck out if he's capable of it, or to pass it out, preferably to the outside, not up the middle. And as a last resort, banking it hard off the boards to at least get it to center ice so your team can either regroup or get a line change or what have you, but to get the puck out of the zone. It's critical, and it's something that Dobson has struggled with badly over the course of this past season. And so the Islanders need to see more from Noah Dobson in this department. And it really, really has to start right away, because Dobson again, is just a key component to this team. And having him, look, this team right now has no other defenseman who can really consistently do what Noah Dobson is capable of. And that is, here's the problem. You put Noah Dobson on the ice, you're prone to all these turnovers. If you take Noah Dobson off the ice, you're losing that ability of a player who can skate, who can create offensively. And the only other player you have on the top six defense who can even remotely come close, and he's not as good at it, is Sebastian Aho, and Aho is even more deficient defensively than Dobson is in many respects, mostly because of his lack of size. So you got to get Dobber straightened out. You have to get his confidence back to the point where, he needs to have it drilled into him that this offseason, working on the power play and working on that transition game has got to be the first and second biggest thing he works on, and got to get him back. Look, we know the skill is there. He did it in 2021, 2022. And maybe it was the fact that he was working with Barry Trotz still at that point. Maybe it was having Zdeno Chara around that helped. That is certainly, something that is important. And here's another thing. You still have Johnny Boychuk associated with this team and helping out. Boychuk should be in touch with Dobson a lot this offseason and get Dobber to emphasize the things he needs to do. Boychuk, we know, is more than capable of doing all the things he needs to do, and has been there and done that, and in his own NHL career was very effective at these things. He has got to get it into Dobson's head that this is what he needs to do, because otherwise the Islanders, if they roll back everything the same as it was a year ago and just hope for improvement, that's not a measure or a strategy for success. The old cliche is that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for a different result. Well, I'm hoping that Lane Lambert, Lou Lamoriello, Johnny Boychuk, and Noah Dobson are not insane, and that they're going to emphasize what they need to emphasize and do what they need to do to straighten out Dobson and get him to be more decisive, more effective, and just smarter with the puck in his own zone and on the power play. If they don't, then this area, which, let's face it, if the Islanders' power play is 15th or 16th out of 32 teams, they're not a wild card this past year. They are third in the division, or second in the division even. And certainly not squeaking, or even if they're not that, they're not squeaking into the playoffs on the last game of the regular season. And if they are better at clearing the puck out of their own zone, they are not squeaking into the playoffs on the last game of the regular season. So it's important for the New York Islanders to really get these two things taken care of, the power play and Noah Dobson gaining his confidence back. And if they can do that, they can improve from within without making major moves. Now, they can improve a lot more if they do both, but at the very least, you've got to improve the assets you have. When we come back, we will discuss this season of Cal Clutterbuck. How did he play? Did he meet expectations? What did he do well? What did he do poorly? And what's his future like with the team? We've got all that and a lot more still to come on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. So we continue our player-by-player look at the New York Islanders. And today we discuss Cal Clutterbuck, the 6 foot, 212-pound right wing, native of Welland, Ontario, and had a limited season this year. Only played 49 games as injuries mounted for Clutter. Now he is, again, 35 years old, going to turn 36 in November, so pretty early on in the coming season for another birthday for Cal Clutterbuck. And, 6 goals, 12 points in those 49 games. That puts him ahead of the pace he had last year, or maybe, roughly at the same pace, where in 59 games he had 15 points. He had 6 goals and 9 assists. He was a +9, so that was definitely a step forward, and had 30 penalty minutes. Here's the thing about Cal Clutterbuck. Still had 194 hits in just 49 games. That is a solid number. Blocked some shots, 33 of them as well, which was up from a year ago. When Cal Clutterbuck is in the game, he is physical, he is smart, doesn't take too many dumb penalties. He is aggressive on the forecheck. He stands up for his teammates. He does all the things you want a fourth line player to do. The problem is, at this point, at the age of 35, going on 36, can you keep Cal Clutterbuck healthy? Because playing 49 games this year, missing 33 of them. Last year, playing 59 games. Playing only 37 games in 2019, 2020. The last time Cal Clutterbuck played more than 75 games in a season is 2017, 2018. It's been a while. And again, we know that at various times during this season, the identity line was not as effective as it had been in the past. Now, they still showed flashes when all 3 of them were healthy and in the lineup and playing at their best. But again, you're not getting the same production. And look, offensively, Clutterbuck not adding a lot. 44 shots on goal in 49 games and only attempted 79 shots. So he's barely attempting a shot and a half per game and getting less than 1 shot on goal in every game. His shooting percentage, by the way, 13.6 was his highest since 2015, 2016, when he had 15 goals, and that is his high as a New York Islander. So, again, to me, you talk about the future of a player. Cal Clutterbuck, if he can stay healthy, he's a leader. He does things well. He's a smart hockey player. But him staying healthy gets less and less likely with every passing game or every passing year. And let's face facts. If Cal Clutterbuck doesn't play that physical style, that style that realistically does cause him to get injured, he's not effective. You can't let Cal Clutterbuck just be a wide open, I'm skating up and down my wing, cherry picking and trying to score goals kind of guy. That's not his role. And hopefully, whether this is the last year of Clutterbuck's contract, and if he does come back and finish out that year, and it does appear that he wants to do it that way, hopefully Clutterbuck, who has a salary of $1.75 million this year, can at least give the Islanders 60, 65, 70 games, because otherwise, you're spending double what you could spend on a fourth line player. And if he's not able to be healthy and play, that is a big problem for the New York Islanders. So hopefully, if Clutter stays, he'll be back on the fourth line doing his thing, but he's got to be effective. And that really is, he's got to stay healthy. If he's not healthy and not in the lineup, that is a big problem. All right, time for our Islanders birthday of the day. We're going all the way back to the first season in Islanders history, because Sunday was the 80th birthday of former Islanders forward Terry Crisp, the Parry Sound, Ontario native, made his NHL debut with the Bruins in 1965-66, but really became a full-time NHLer when expansion hit. He was with the St. Louis Blues, and then the Islanders chose him in the expansion draft in 72-73. He played 54 games for the Islanders that first season and had 4 goals and 20 points with 6 penalty minutes, was only a minus 23, which for the first year Islanders was very good. And he got traded to the Philadelphia Flyers late in the season so the Islanders could acquire Jean Potvin. And Jean Potvin, of course, was traded for in part to help Dennis Potvin decide to play for the Islanders and not in the WHA. Meanwhile, Crisp went on to play for both Stanley Cup winning teams for the Flyers in 73-74, and he coached the Calgary Flames to a Stanley Cup championship in 1988-89, was a head coach as recently as 1997-98 with the Tampa Bay Lightning. His best game with the Islanders, the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, December 23rd, 1972, the old Minnesota North Stars, the visiting team with Cesar Maniago in goal, Billy Smith, the goalie for the Islanders. And in this game, Terry Crisp has a goal and an assist. He was a +2 and scored on his only shot on goal. So a goal and an assist for Crisp as the Islanders beat the North Stars by a final score of 4-2. So Billy Smith made 17 saves. The Islanders actually out shooting Minnesota 29-19 in this game. A rare dominant performance by this Islanders team. And among the goal scorers for the Minnesota North Stars in this game, J.P. Parise, father of Zach Parise. All right, we will be back tomorrow. And everydayers, you know that among the things we'll be discussing, we'll continue our player-by-player review of the New York Islanders. We'll talk about Matthew Barzal's season and what we can expect from him going forward tomorrow on the show. I want to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day, and I want to, again, thank and recognize all those people who gave their lives for this country in wars. So happy Memorial Day, and do take a moment to think about the sacrifices, the ultimate sacrifices that many people made for this country. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the holiday. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.